Welcome to the show. Thank you for joining us. I'm Ryan Campbell, your host. I'm here joined today with Kristi Moore. You are the communications manager for ATCAA, and Sophia Kaufman, you are the communications coordinator for ATCAA. Yeah. Thank you very much for being here.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thank you for having us.
Well, can you tell me right off the top of the head, what does ATCAA stand for? What is ATCAA generally? What is it as an organization?
ATCAA is Amador-Tuolumne Community Action Agency, and it's a mouthful, which is why we use the acronym ATCAA. That's what we're better known for. And so the Community Action Agency, we're one of 1,000 over nationwide. So there's several of us around. I think there's 58 or 60 in California. And we were formed in 1981 through a JPA, through the Tuolumne County governments and Amador County governments, to combat poverty, basically. And so it's been over, 40 years, 41 years, 42 years going
Coming
now.
up on 42, yeah.
And we're very happy to be part of this work that's been going on and helping our communities for this many decades.
What would you say are the top services that you provide in the community that people would know you for?
That would know us.
People would associate with ATCAA.
Do you want to take that one?
I would say the food bank is the biggest one. We're pretty well known throughout the community with Head Start because we're in so many different schools. And I would say those are probably the biggest two most widely known.
Yeah, and you are the only actual food bank in Tuolumne County.
Correct,
Because there are different, can you explain a little bit about what's the difference between a food bank and a food pantry?
Yeah, so we have through the food bank, we have the neighborhood pantry program, neighborhood partner program, and we are partnered with 16 different food pantries. So they receive supplies through the ATCAA food bank, and they are essentially overseen by the ATCAA food bank to help get residents throughout the county supplies that they need in different areas, because as you know, we're in a really rural county, so we're kind of spread out. And so the ATCAA food bank being in Jamestown isn't always the most convenient option for maybe someone who lives in Sugar Pine. Yeah. So, yeah. So
it's kind of like the food bank that we have out in Jamestown is the hub.
Exactly.
And it kind of goes out to different communities from there.
Yeah, and it's a crucial part of us being able to meet the needs of the community. So we're really grateful to have so many partner pantries.
Yeah.
So one other thing I'd like to interject is, we're part of the Feeding America, which is nationwide, and so we have the purchasing power through them. So we can buy food and pennies on the dollar, and then distribute it out to the various partner pantries. And then there's the Motherlode Food Project, which is a nonprofit group in this community that collects food through just people, neighborhoods,
food drives.
And various food drives, yes. And it all goes down to the food bank, and the food bank splits that up and divvies it out to all the rest of the partner pantries. And of the 16, I guess it's 16 that we have, there's because we get food and some government subsidies, there's always, we have rules we have to abide by. We have to make sure the food is fresh, we make, all of these things. And that's why if we're the warehouse and the hub that's taking some controls over that, food coming in, food going out, and how it's stored and whatnot. That's one of the services that we provide to the rest of the pantries.
I guess that's kind of one of the things that's so critical about having a food bank is the logistics part of it, because I think just in my mind, when you would think of a food bank, you think of just a storage shelter with a bunch of canned goods that were donated by people that they didn't want the extra can of pumpkin pie mix or something, and so they donated it. But that's not what we're talking about. You take in fresh food, vegetables, bread, perishables, all those kind of things.
Meat. During the holidays, we have our holiday food baskets. We're giving out whole turkeys.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's important not only to get food out to residents who need it, but also that they're getting nutritional food. So we also have worked with CalFresh locally to provide clients of the food bank recipes that they can make, like healthy recipes that they can make at home with ingredients from the food bank. So it is also focused on nutrition just as much as fulfilling the need.
Yeah. And then tell me about Head Start. So you're known for that because it's in schools. Parents and kids interact a lot with it.
They do. Head Start is part of what we call the early childhood services. So Head Start is it's a preschool, kindergarten readiness, but they also have early Head Start. So that's for infants 0 to 3, I believe. Home-based programs. So if there's parents that don't have transportation or they have children with some sort of issues, they'll just go out to their home, and they have programs for pregnant moms, and just do an awful lot to help not just the children thrive, but the parents thrive as being parents as well.
Yeah, we've had guests on here talking about how important early childhood development is. And it's just, you have that window of the first 5 years where if they're not getting the right nutrition, if they're not getting some of the language and socialization skills, then it can affect a child throughout the whole rest of their life.
Right, right.
And so, and I don't know when, Head Start's been around for a long time, hasn't it?
Yes, and it's a national. It's we have Head Start, and then you'll see one in every county nationwide practically. And I believe, don't quote me on this, it's been around prior to ATCAA being around. It's been around for a long time. I'm not sure if Head Start here started in 1981 when ATCAA did, but it's been around for decades. And they do have Head Start centers at many of the various schools and areas in the community. They're struggling a little bit with enrollment. There is a income threshold, and it's pretty low.
Yeah.
But if you know of parents out there and they're not sure about whether or not they can qualify, they should definitely call and inquire. Pregnant parents with infants, get them started. It's not just a preschool.
Yeah. You mentioned the income threshold. I don't know if that's changed at all, but I remember, just a few years ago, we were advocating at the state level to change some of those income thresholds because you have people that are working at jobs that on paper it looks like their income is fairly healthy, but if you look at the inflation, the cost of living, rent, what it costs to pay a mortgage on a house, it just makes it so difficult to qualify for some of these other kind of programs.
It's hard because stuff happens and then the government catches up.
Yeah.
And that's just how things work. So it's that way in so many areas. So many of our programs, they're all, you have to be income qualified, but there's different
thresholds.
Qualifications depending on the program, because one federal program says it needs to be 200% above the poverty level, and that poverty level changes here, each year here and there, and others say no, it needs to be this amount, and others say it needs to be this amount. And so if you don't qualify for this program, you might qualify for that. And so don't, if you've gone, like for instance, to Head Start, it's okay, well, my income level is too high. That doesn't mean that you can't get help with food or with energy. They're all different, unfortunately. It's just how this operates. But
and there have been some changes to income guidelines. I know I can for sure say that for the energy program, we recently had an update to the income guidelines that raised them just a little bit. So, maybe you don't qualify one year, but maybe the next year you do. So it's one of those things that you can't write it off just because you didn't qualify for a certain program or a certain point in time, especially if your circumstances change, So
I think the tax program, their qualifications went up.
They did,
the income guidelines.
And you both mentioned too, the energy program and the tax program, that were two things that I wanted to talk about. But I also just wanted to say how much I appreciate ATCAA and organizations like that, for exactly the reason that you're talking about, is that, you look at county government or state government or even the federal government, so slow to get anything done. There are so many hoops you have to jump through. But it's one of the benefits of having JPA and another organization that has, I don't know what you'd call it. I guess we made a joke about a public-private.
Public nonprofit.
Public nonprofit
doesn't
mean anything, but it makes sense though, because it's like you have some qualities of a government agency, but then you also have some qualities of like a private corporation in that you have a lot more flexibility to get resources to the people that need them in a more efficient way than government is not always the best at.
In a less expensive way,
Yeah,
you know,
more
fortunately or
efficient,
unfortunately, however you want to look at it. Some of the services, you know, we can provide those that the county can't. That doesn't mean that the residents of the county don't need those or shouldn't have them. It's just that it's not the county's role. So we play a fairly critical role in providing those services to low-income residents. So,
well, let's talk about energy. So, electricity is expensive, gas is expensive, home heating fuel is expensive, especially right now when it's really cold. What if someone was in need of assistance in those kind of areas to heat and cool their home? What can they expect by reaching out to ATCAA?
So ATCAA can help with energy in two ways. So ATCAA's energy program has two parts, which is both utility bill assistance and the home weatherization program. So the utility bill assistance program is designed to provide financial assistance to income qualified residents to assist them in paying their propane, PG&E, or water bills, depending on the service provider and obviously individual circumstance. So that's a huge one because as we've seen in the last year, cost of living in general has gone up exponentially, but also the cost of PG&E specifically, propane and water, they've all gone up a lot. So we've had a big influx in clients coming in to get assistance with utility bill services. And then the home weatherization program is designed to help people upgrade and provide certain repairs to their home to increase the comfort and energy efficiency of their home to ultimately reduce their utility bills. So we can potentially provide services to people to help them pay bills right now for, you know, PG&E, propane, and water, and then we can also go in and say, hey, you know, if there's maybe we need to upgrade some light bulbs or appliances or things like that, whatever is feasible and makes sense for that client to upgrade their home to be as energy efficient as possible. So the home weatherization program, I would say, is underutilized, and people don't realize that it also applies to renters just as much as it does homeowners. So if renters can get the approval of the landlord to have these upgrades or, you know, certain repairs done to their space, then everybody wins.
So is it kind of like you know, converting single pane windows to
things of those sorts. There's a full list of the types of services that we provide on the home weatherization page on ATCAA's website. But that's essentially the idea, right? Is if they come into your home, they provide an inspection to identify the biggest things that are likely affecting your home's energy efficiency, and then they can work to solve those problems.
That's great.
Yeah.
That sounds like a really interesting program.
Yeah.
And another thing that was interesting is you mentioned the tax program. So, but can you tell me about that?
Sure. We have a VITA program, VITA, so that's Volunteer Income Tax Assistance, and that's run through the IRS. And there's certified tax preparers. We have one person, I think, that's been with us for 12 years, an expert. You're getting quality tax preparation within our agency. And you have to have made 60,000 or less this year per household, and your tax situation has to fall within our scope. There's some things, if it's rental income or just some various things that if some complications we can't do, but mostly we're talking about saving somebody a few bucks to go to you know, some of the for-profit organizations that are going to charge them a couple $100 to get their returns done. And quite often the lower the income, the more credits they're going to get back, refunds are going to get back, so that's putting money back in their pocket. California introduced several years ago the earned income tax credit, you know, for our own state. Expanded that with a young child tax credit, expanded that again. I just learned last week this year that they're offering a tax credit to foster youth who 18 to 24 who used to be in the foster system, and foster parents. So anybody that's in the foster system should check that out this year. Our tax program opens next week, and you can go on the website and find about how to get your taxes done, not just through us, but to do it on your own for free.
Yeah.
It's one thing that going through the pandemic, when most of the tax programs around the country shut down because they were doing them in person and couldn't meet people in person. One of the things our tax folks did was figured out how to provide a drop-off service. So you can't come with your paperwork, it gets scanned, they give it back, and then come back, gets prepared, come back and pick up your taxes, and they're done. There's also a virtual service where you can upload your documents yourself, and somebody on the other end, you're not doing your taxes yourself. There's a preparer on the other side of the computer, so to speak, that's doing them for you. And some of those preparers are local. You can ask to have that be a local preparer versus somebody from Sacramento or Nevada or whatnot. So it's just a way we could serve more clients. And getting them prepared a lot of different ways. And
yeah, it's always been interesting to me that the way our tax system works is so difficult to use, to use the simplest term, because it's just like, the IRS knows
exactly
what you should be paying every year, and so why
do you have to do this when they already know it? Why are they making you go through that exercise? And there's so many people that are so afraid, even if they have a simple return, they're so afraid to go through that exercise. So part of it's teaching them how to do it themselves, making them feel comfortable. And I think that's something we want to expand on in the future, is have courses. It's like, you're going to come in and here's your tax information and here's this computer. We're going to help you do it yourself. So by next year, you'll see that it was real easy to go through and do it yourself. But right now we offer, the in-person appointments, the virtual appointments, the drop-off appointments, and help with doing it yourself. And some of that comes down to maybe somebody's not intimidated by doing their taxes themselves, but they're intimidated by, they don't know how to upload a document or something from their phone. There's technology issues and barriers. So when somebody calls in and says, I want to have my taxes done, they go through a series of questions to figure out where you are in the spectrum. And there's a lot of people like your generation, they understand and they say, oh, I can do it on my phone and I just have to upload this and, send it off there and okay, I'm done.
Right.
And it's easy. But then there's people on the other spectrum that still need that sit-down appointment with that tax preparer and go through everything.
That's great.
Yeah.
Now, so you have other services there, like information referral?
The information and referral, I know it's kind of a government-tized term, but let's say somebody calls us and they say, I need help with childcare, or I need transportation, or whatever it is they need. We don't provide that service. We can point them to who does provide that service. So we're not leaving them saying, well, I'm sorry, we can't help you, goodbye. We have our front office staff and anybody that works with the clients works with partners and other agencies, other nonprofits, other organizations throughout the county. And they're all interconnected, and they all work together to help whatever this individual or family may need at the moment to address the problem. So it's really wonderful to see the folks in, the staff in our organization working with staff in other organizations together to just uplift.
That's one of the things that I really appreciate, not just ATCAA, but a lot of the different agencies in the county or even the region that help people, is that you communicate with each other. And so that if somebody's looking for a service and they just, people aren't necessarily going to know the right place to go to get help. And so they pick up the phone, they call ATCAA, and you guys are very good about saying, that's actually not our department, but I tell you who does do that resource that you're looking for, and then they're good about connecting people.
Yeah, and we're continually making efforts to expand our knowledge of other resources locally, and participating in local resource networks like the Community Roots Resource Network, which is the overall goal is to have anybody call in and say, hey, I need help with this, and then get them to the right place. Because we all have the same goal of just uplifting, local residents and ensuring that their needs are fulfilled.
Yeah. And we talked about a couple of the kind of the main projects. What are some of the resources that you offer at ATCAA that maybe people wouldn't necessarily be as familiar with?
I would say some of our youth programs. Friday Night Live it's not football.
Not Friday Night Lights.
Right. Yeah. People think it's something to do with football, and I guess it's that live lights, something that gets confused. But it's a program that is on campus based, and it's at both high schools, and it's being expanded now to the middle schools.
Yeah,
so
through Club Live.
Yeah,
so
Club Live and Friday Night Live. And do you want to explain?
Yeah, so like she said, it's a countywide youth program that forms partnerships to promote healthy and positive youth development. So they learn in these programs, they learn things like leadership skills, and it also focuses on alcohol and substance abuse prevention, as well as forming healthy relationships and wellness. So it's really trying to equip students with these important tools like leadership or instilling the value of wellness to set them up for success. And I've actually had the opportunity to attend one of the meetings and kind of help the students with a couple of things, and it's really cool. And I remember it when I was in high school at Sonora High. Their presence there, and I think that it's really important, especially because we do see in like our county, right, that there is youth substance and alcohol abuse, and that's an important issue to address. But not only just saying, hey, don't do this, it's also saying, well, what do you want to talk about, and what issues do you guys feel like you are facing? So I really appreciate that about Friday Night Live, is that they really tune into students' needs and empower them to be leaders and to take action on things that they are concerned about.
And you worked with Tuolumne County's homeless coordinator on a campaign, a social media campaign, kind of focusing on homeless voices in the community. And I'll just briefly describing it. It was a picture of a person from our community experiencing homelessness, and then it was a description in their own words of what that experience is like.
Right.
What can you tell me? What was that experience like, going, promoting this as a concept and trying to get those voices out there?
So I did a lot of research prior to putting the campaign together. It ended up being a 43-piece content campaign, which is a lot of information. But I felt it was really important for me to understand how people were currently perceiving homelessness, and what's effective in communicating about it and what's not, right? And so what I found is that the focus of communicating about homelessness really needs to be the humanization, right? We see statistics and facts and numbers all the time about homelessness, but what happens when those are presented is it dehumanizes the issue, right? These people it puts them as numbers when they're humans. And so the entire focus of the campaign was really to humanize the issue and to open the conversation. And I would say those are really the two main goals of, let's talk about this tough topic, and let's hear everyone's opinions, because they're all equally important. So we did the testimonial series of the local unhoused population. It was our Unhoused Neighbors was the name of the series. And we had a local photographer go out, and these people volunteered to present themselves and to provide typically about a one-liner, about their experience. And it was as simple as that. We didn't get the whole backstory. We don't have all of the information about their circumstances or their lives or what happened before or what happens next. But the point is that their identity is not being unhoused. Their identity is whatever their name was, and their story.
Yeah. And it was so fascinating to me, and I thought it was a really, first of all, brave thing for you to do, and for the, everybody involved in developing that as a concept, but extraordinarily brave of the people that actually participated and were willing to have their images put online. And
Incredibly so. Yeah.
and you mentioned starting a conversation. You were definitely successful in that.
Yes.
And I was, we're joking about it, but I was actually really shocked at some of the comments that people made. Really heartless kind of comments about people that were experiencing homelessness and that were, had that courage to put themselves out there,
Right.
to be associated with something that's a pretty controversial topic.
Yeah.
And so, I think like the first impression was that, wow, this is terrible that these people put themselves out there, and then they're getting all this negative feedback from people that, just really have, I would say, kind of backward views on what homelessness is and what the causes are. But then, I don't know, maybe we need to go through that, because it's sort of like ignoring the problem is not the solution to
Right.
solving the problem.
Yeah.
It just makes it worse.
Any way you can educate even one person
Yeah.
to help them understand, that's you're
Yeah.
successful.
Absolutely. And I think that was actively, obviously, something that we were monitoring right
Yeah.
throughout. And as much as those were negative comments, there are negative experiences that local, residents are experiencing due to the unhoused population. So I actually appreciated all of the different aspects, and that the goal was not to, the goal again was just to start a conversation about what we're all dealing with in whatever way we're dealing with it, right? And to raise awareness. So I think, again, we were very successful in starting a conversation and raising awareness. But I think every perspective had its value in the conversation. Now, of course, it's difficult to digest some of the comments, but those are the people living in this county, and
Yeah.
they have a right to be heard as well, So I think as an individual, I am very glad that I was able to participate in something that really sparked a conversation about a hugely important issue to our county. So
Yeah, and you stated it really well.
Speaking of housing, though, I wanted to touch on this. I was talking to our housing director, Denise Cloward, yesterday, and told her I was going to be here. And I said, we're not going to go into the housing crisis and the homelessness issue, because it's too big and it needs its own show just for that
Yeah,
in
right.
Tuolumne County. But I do want to make sure that folks out there know that we do have a robust housing program. We have a shelter that's almost constantly full, working with the city of Sonora on another building that they purchased, and eventually that'll get renovated, and we'll be running that also. We have in our housing program, we have trying to help people prevent them from becoming homeless, helping them with their rent, sometimes helping them with their mortgage, sometimes helping people, putting them up in some motels or something more temporary. We have some transitional housing. So what we don't have is enough housing for our department to help people
Right.
get into housing. So that's we all know that's a huge problem here. But homelessness is here, and even whether we accept it or not, it's here, and we have to solve it. And so the best way, and we're slowly doing that, is to have all of these entities working together, the city, the county, ATCAA, the Resiliency Village, these other nonprofit organizations working together to figure out how to help solve this problem going forward.
Yeah.
So.
Well, Kristi Moore, thank you so much for your time. Actually, before I let you go, what's that number again? If people are interested in
absolutely.
either in the services that you're providing or maybe volunteering for one of these programs.
209-533-1397, or the website is atcaa.org, and we are on our social media channels.
Yeah.
It's
So-
ATCAA since 1981 for both Facebook and Instagram, and we'll be at the Tuolumne County Volunteer Fair on March 30th.
That's great.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Kristi Moore, Sophia Kaufman from ATCAA, thank you very much for being here.
Thank you.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
please
All right.
come back anytime.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for joining us. I'm Ryan Campbell. I've been your host for today. Please join us again next week for another interesting conversation about Tuolumne County. Take care.